Me in the middle. So, um, so do you guys want to talk about how you guys came to be? So for those that don't know, Motorcar Portfolio is a classic car dealer in magnificent Magnolia, Ohio, but it originated in Canton, Ohio, and it belonged to a guy named Bob. Can't say his last name.
Lichty.
Bob Lichty. And we did a couple cars from there in the very early days. He had two Kaisers and a Packard Henny
Ambulance, right?
ambulance.
Yeah.
And Bob passed away, and they took over and moved it down here to Magnolia, Ohio. So how did you guys come to know Bob?
Sure. My name is Megan Boyd. My husband Matt and I, we own Motorcar Portfolio since September of 2022. As he said, Bob passed away unfortunately, unexpectedly, the day after Memorial Day in 2022. And how we came to know Bob, each of us have our own story, but I guess I'll start with mine. Growing up, like I was telling him a little bit ago, I had a car dad that didn't have any sons, so I always say I was kind of doomed from the start. So I grew up around cars and always liked being with cars, and my mom worked in downtown Canton and got me connected with the Canton Classic Car Museum, where I would start volunteering when I was in middle school and then volunteered all through high school. And during that time period, Bob was actually the director of the Canton Classic Car Museum. So I got to know him through the different events I did there. I would go and wipe off cars. We had the Great Race come into town. I helped with that event, just different things. So then as time passes, things changed at the museum. He left the museum. We kind of lost touch for a little bit. And then my mom happened to run into him in downtown Canton right when I was finishing my automotive engineering degree. And he was like, oh, what's Megan doing? And she was like, oh, she just graduated from college, And he's like, oh, well, have her come see me. And at that time, Motorcar Portfolio was just starting in the basement, the lower level of what was then the McKinley Grand Hotel, which was a Hilton. It's a DoubleTree now, just downtown. So I went to see him to catch up with an old friend, and I walked out of the place with a job. So it worked out good for everybody. And so I started working with him, and I guess it was the fall of 2003. And then Matt, you were working with him like casually by then, because I think, didn't he invite you to like the kickoff party for when Motorcar opened or something like that?
Yeah, so I met Bob. There was an auction in Mansfield, if you remember, 20 some years ago, and there was a gentleman that was driving a steam engine in the Mansfield Fairgrounds, and if you remember it, if you can remember, it blew up, and the guy had drove it away from the crowds to get it away from as many people as he could, and after his death on the steam engine, there was a giant auction with all his semis and cars and all his collection. But however, the cars had suffered a great amount of damage from the steam engine blowing up. So there'd be giant holes in the sides of the cars, and the hoods were smashed in and all kinds of stuff. But I met Bob there because he was there buying quite a few cars. And I walked up and said, I introduced myself. I was there to buy a truck, and actually Bob ended up buying it. It was a gentleman's Ford half-ton truck. The ones where the beds all can, part of the cab, they're not separated. And so Bob had invited me to his grand opening of Motorcar Portfolio, and he had a big grand party, dinners, and there was a lot of people from our area that was invited to the grand opening. And so I went to the grand opening, met Bob again and Gary Brown, and met everybody. And then from there, Bob had asked me to start doing a little bit of work off and on. And the first job I did for him was he sent me a 50 Mercury coupe, 50 Mercury four-door, and I put new valves in it for him. And that was the first vehicle I did for him, and then returned it. So then I was just working for him just in my own shop, doing mechanical work. And that was the first one we did for him. I did.
And then we both worked there. Both worked at Motorcar then, because then Bob and Gary decided to start a bit of a full-time restoration shop. So then you went and worked at the restoration shop, and then I think that closed in about 2009, if I remember right. And then I hung around until probably 2010, and then the business was changing. So then at that time, Matt and I both went to work for RM Sotheby's, the classic car auction company, and we worked at auctions all over the world. But in the same token, we friends with Bob, and we continued to do business with him. So he was actually one of the first people to visit our daughter when she was born in the hospital, and he gave her a little red Volkswagen Beetle. But yeah, so whenever he passed away, I was approached by his estate and said, you know, you were like a daughter to him, and we would, you know, love for you to continue his legacy and continue the business. So that's how it happened. But just as so happened at the same time, by that time in 2019, Bob had moved Motorcar down to the old Epi's dealership on South Market, which was really only like 4 blocks south of where they were. So he was leasing space there, and there were several businesses within there, and it was a nice place. It was fun. You probably went there where the, you know, it was like a real 60s showroom, so it was cool for the cars. But it was also a real pain for the cars, because if you wanted to get like one car out, you had to build like 10 different cars.
They were tight. Yeah. They were tight in there. Bob was an incredible guy. I only got to meet him twice, and like he was picking my brain. Before I asked him, I said, "Hey, I got a YouTube channel. Can I shoot a couple of these cars?" And he's like, "Well, what can you tell me about this?" And I tell him like the different years, and he's like, "You know your stuff." Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Like it was nuts. But
he was very easygoing.
He was super easygoing.
He knew so much about cars. That's what we were just talking a minute ago about the standard catalogs that are up here on the shelf. Bob actually had a hand in writing those, so it's hard to argue with people about a car when they literally wrote the book about it.
Right. That would have been awesome to ask him some questions about certain things. I didn't know that the second time seeing him was going to be the last time.
Yeah, he had such. I mean, he was so knowledgeable. Like you could take him a bumper extension. I mean, just bring him the most random parts, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's to a '54 Chevy, or you know, that's to a '40 Nash," and it was like, "Oh my gosh, like how do you know all this stuff?" But he was just really such a huge car nut, and growing up in Akron, I think, really also helped that, you know, because he's around all the, you know, the Goodyear factory and that, you know, the Akron drag strip, and he just was around. He just made himself around cars all the time. So, and then he had such an amazing career working for so many car places. Like I don't know if you know about that, but the only non-car job he ever had was he worked for Mohawk Carpet right out of like art and design school, and that was up in New York, and that's when he met Gary Brown, and they became lifelong car friends. But that was the only non-car job he had. He had worked for Hemmings. He had worked for Old Cars Weekly, the Blackhawk Collection in California. He had his own dealership in LA for a while. So, and then it's just kind of fate that he came back to run the car museum. And
he was the president, or not the president, but the director of the Canton Auto Museum at one point too.
Right, yep. And then him and his wife Rosemary were very involved in the Lincoln Highway Association. And Matt and I have actually done 2 cross-country trips with them on the Lincoln Highway. So
nice.
Yeah.
So you guys got the business, and you moved it here to Magnolia, Ohio.
Yes, yeah, we want to move down here. At this facility, we have 30,000 square foot under roof. We have 16 acres. So we just have a lot more room to spread out. Plus, it's a lot nicer. When people come to want to test drive a car, we have, you know, beautiful country roads they can drive it on. It was always kind of challenging in the city to, you know, navigate and really run a car out. So it's nice to be down here now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So being in the car business, is there any car that anybody put up on like on a really high pedestal, and then when you finally got to drive it, it turned out to be a total pile of shit? or because like they're all, you know, they all drive different.
Matt has a saying about that. They're all piles, just some are bigger than others.
It's just some are bigger.
That comes from a guy down in Tennessee I know real well. That's what he says. They're all piles, just some are bigger piles than the other. But I guess for me, I would say one of the neatest cars I've drove is I did get to drive. I've drove 3 or 4 Tuckers.
Oh.
And I thought, you know, this is going to really be something. But I always say, to me, they kind of looked to me like I thought they drove and felt and handled like a glorified Volkswagen.
Really?
You know, because the motor's in the back. They drove nice light steering. They were easy to shift, but they were fun to drive. But I thought, well, it's really going to be something. But it was fun. It was neat, but different. You know.
I think there's a lot of like pre-war cars that I've driven that, man, some stuff pre-war was pretty. Like I love Duesenbergs. I'd love to have a Duesenberg.
That's what Bob said.
They drive like
Bob said they're great to look at, suck to drive. Difficult. All right, I think we're back. It's been. All right, I think we're back. it's been, but
So
Tucker's not so good.
Well, I mean, it was fun to drive, and it was fast. I mean, not fast. I didn't get to drive it much. Just drove around an auction, but you know, it had roll light steering, noisy in the back. You know, I mean, it was neat to take in, but you know, it wasn't like a luxury car or anything at the time. You know what I
Right.
mean? You know, I mean, in the '40s, you get in a big Lincoln or even a big Cadillac or a big Buick. They drive pretty nice. You know what I mean? So
and I think that a lot of times, you know, we always joke with people, you know, when they come here to drive a car, we're like, okay, now remember, you just got out of your Lexus and you're gonna get in this car and it's gonna have, you know, manual brakes and manual steering. And I think to a point sometimes we're even reminded with that. You know, we have such a variety of cars in the dealership that, the earliest car we have right now is a Model T, well, actually an 1812 Buick. I mean, a 1912 Buick is way different than a 1872 El Camino. You know,
Right.
it's just cars continue to evolve. So, yeah.
Nice. Did you guys ever get to drive an Airflow?
Yeah, Chrysler Airflows. I feel like that's a pretty cool car in an auction.
yeah, a friend of ours, Keith Flickinger, is he's just done two-door airflows, and Bob had airflows
Mhm.
back at the dealership, and we used to drive them around, and a friend of mine, Scott Morrell at
Milford Auto.
Milford Auto, he just bought he a Chrysler Airflow through us at an auction,
Oh, nice.
and you
They're
know,
only worth X amount of money, but I think you see people spend like $100,000 on restorations because they're such beautiful cars, and then they all end up kind of bringing $4,000 in the end.
yeah, we just sold to Greensboro at GA auctions, and they were beautiful cars. I mean, they're great to drive.
Yeah.
I saw a two-door Airflow. It seems like they keep taking like I'm new to the whole auction experience, but it seems like they take a car from one auction, say like Auburn. It doesn't sell at Auburn. They take it. You'll see it at Hershey, and and they'll bring the same amount of money, and they won't sell it, and they'll take it somewhere else.
I feel like there's like a statistic that Rick Carey, who writes a lot of price guides, says that a certain number of cars are just always in the kind of the auction circuit going
Yeah.
from one to the other.
That's what I was seeing.
And they might find a home for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but then they get kicked back into the.
Right,
You
that's
know?
exactly what I saw
Yeah.
at Auburn. Somebody bought an Auburn Speedster, and they actually bought it, and it was gone, and then I saw it for sale again.
Mm.
And I was like, there's not that many of those cars left. It has to be the same one.
Well, sometimes people buy a car, especially like an Auburn Speedster or something like that. They'll buy a car just to go to like the Auburn Parade or be in the Auburn Duesenberg Cord Club. And then once they've done it for a year or two or whatever, then sometimes they'll decide, okay, I bought an Auburn to do this. Now it's time to step to a Duesenberg or a Cord,
Oh,
or
right.
you know what I mean.
I never thought of it
They'll
that
want
way.
to own one of the other three, or they'll have done a tour and they'll go, you know what, it's a nice car, but I really like my Lincoln, or I really like my, and then they'll sell. We just had a local fella that bought a supercharged Auburn off of us, and the same thing. He did a giant tour in Florida, and he liked it, but he wasn't what he really, he did the Auburn Duesenberg Cord Parade, he did everything, and on to the next chapter. So then he's going after something else now. So
Nice.
sometimes that's what happens to cars.
Yeah.
And it's amazing in the auction industry when we would be physically checking the cars in for an auction, which is what Matt and I have done a lot of. And a result would pop up and say, oh, we sold this at Auburn 2 years ago. And you would see the odometer would be like, oh, 2 years ago the odometer said 35 and now the odometer says like 37. And I was like, well, that's kind of depressing. Like, people
Yeah.
just, this is like on and off truck miles, nobody really drove it much, but yeah.
I love Airflows. Like my scenario is if I could find all three of these cars in the same price point, I don't know which one I'd choose. I like the 1935 Hupmobile Aero Coupe with the straight 8, or a Packard 120 with the straight 8, or the Chrysler Airflow with the straight 8 from 37 and 37 for the Packard. Hupmobile, 34, 35 is probably my favorite. They have those like weird oval shaped headlights and the grille that sets back, and they look different. The 3-piece windshield in the
Mhm.
front.
I think you would find that the Packard and the Chrysler would probably be more neck to neck.
Right.
Packards were, people don't realize this. Maybe only people that own Packards, I think, pre-war Packards especially. But Packards were so overbuilt as a car and so rigorously tested that it's no wonder they went out of business, because they were the top of the top of the top. I mean, I can talk a little bit more about that, like the proving grounds and stuff. We've actually been to where they have the Packard proving grounds, and they used to run them like for like 24 hours on this
They
loop.
run them 24 hours, and then they tear them down. I believe I can't remember the exact number, but every several thousand miles they'd tear the chassis down. They were just driving the chassis, and they would tear the chassis down, remike anything, and anything that was going bad, they would fix it. And then once they got 100,000 miles out of that chassis, then they would start the production of the chassis.
Oh wow.
And so people don't understand that chassis was proven to go 100,000 miles before they even started the production of the car. And later on, and even till, well, I'd say up to the 80s, that's the same track that the military was testing tanks on.
Oh wow.
Was the same car that Packard was testing their cars on.
You can go
You know.
there and visit like the proving ground building. I think they
Part
maybe
of the
have like a
track's
little
gone.
music. Well, no, I think they made the track like a housing development
Yeah.
or something. But we've gone there. One of the tours we went on, that was the kickoff location. Remember, they have like, I think people run it for weddings and stuff too.
But they had 3 or 4 drivers that would just drive 4 hours a day.
Oh wow.
And
In
the
a
car
circle.
would never,
How'd
it
you
would
like that?
never, it would just all day long.
Yeah. I just found out that Packard, they didn't get hydraulic brakes until 1930. It was 37 or 38 on the senior cars, and 1936 on the junior cars, and they used a vacuum to operate their brakes, which is interesting. I never knew that. How well does their brakes work?
We have a 33 Packard, and it has vacuum, and it has a 4-position lever on the dash. You can change, well, they could say many different things, but they say from ladies to men's brake pressure. The 4-position, but
We don't touch it.
we leave it on number 2, and you can very easily 40, 50, 60 mile an hour, you can put on the brakes and slide all 4 tires.
Oh wow.
And
They don't lock up or anything?
well, they'll lock up, but I mean, they slide to a stop, but it'll lock the tires up at 50, 60 mile an hour, just
Oh,
as,
wow.
they work great, and we've never even serviced the brakes,
That's incredible.
I mean, we keep them adjusted, but we never service them or anything like that, but
I've
they
heard
work very well.
I've heard Packard is the best overall balanced car from the pre-war era. Best steering, best braking, best handling. It might not be the most powerful car, but they were balanced.
I mean, I've drove a lot of big classics. I drove Duesenbergs, Packards, Suzus. I mean, a lot of different things. And I always say I always go back to a Packard. When I would get sent out from RM to make a collection of cars run, and you'd walk in, there'd be Duesenbergs, supercharged Duesenbergs, there'd be a whole row of cars. You always knew the Packards were going to start. They were going to start the easiest.
That's what Megan said. Usually, like when you get in an Imperial, you have to do this, that. At Packard, you just get in, put the key in, turn it, and hit the button, and you're off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like Packards.
Yep.
I do too.
We're on the 8. They always say 12 is for show, 8 is for go. So
Yeah.
that's why we have an 8.
Yeah, that's what Ray was saying. He's like, why would you want a 12? Cost a fortune to get a 12 service. You can have a Super 8 and have,
Yeah. Only
you're
pay
not-
half a fortune.
Right, half a fortune.
I remember when we bought the car, we needed, what did we need? Like a new distributor cap, and it was, number 1, Packard parts can be hard to find, and number 2, like anytime you get into the pre-war big cars, I mean, you're not just running to Napa for the most part to buy stuff, so. But it's fun. It's part of the fun of having old cars, is finding the stuff for them. Most of the time it becomes not fun, but yeah.
I love the fact when you open the door of a Packard, it tilts out in such a way. Like I don't know if you ever knew that. Like the bottom of the door is closer than the top hinge. It tilts out when you open
We have to make a video of our Packard when it warms up, and we can
Definitely,
check it out.
definitely. I was
We're
definitely going
the-
to say that.
It's a 1933 Packard Super 8 convertible coupe, and we're the 3rd owners of it. And it was delivered new in Cleveland. A guy bought it as a gift for his brother,
Oh wow.
and his brother was, I don't know what the right word is. I don't think he was an undertaker. He was like a caretaker at a big Cleveland cemetery. And so these people that we got it from, I guess they'd drive by the cemetery and saw this Packard, and I guess they'd be like, oh, we want to buy it, and the guy drove it all the time. And he's like, oh, it's not for sale, it's not for sale. So they owned a bar in Cleveland called the Hawaiian, and
it was a Rockside Road.
Yeah, they went out and this is in 1962. I guess they went out and like somewhere in 60, 61, 62, bought a Chevy pickup because they needed something to haul their alcohol in for the bar. Yeah. So I guess right after they went and bought this pickup, the guy comes knocking on their door and he's like, hey, I'm ready to sell the Packard. And they're like, we just bought this Chevy truck. Like, we don't have any money to buy your Packard. He's like, no, I'll trade you for it. And so they got the Packard, and they used to actually haul the alcohol for their bar in the Packard. So then they owned it from 62 to 2015 when we bought it. And we actually bought it from Bob.
Oh, wow.
We had several people in the industry looking. We wanted to buy a largely, if not completely, original full classic. So big C, you know, recognized classic.
Full classic.
Big C. And Bob came up with this car, and so like I said, we're the third owners of it, and it's original paint. When we got the car, the only thing that was not original was the top, but the interior of it was all like electrical taped together, so that had to go pretty quick because every time you got in or out of the car, you had tape on you. So we put new hides in we redid the seat of it, not the kick panels because they're fine. But yeah, it was like, 5 hides or something. It was crazy.
5 leather hides in the seat.
And we changed I'll text you some pictures and you can.
That's how I met Matt. I saw him at Salem Concord event. I was sicker than a dog. I couldn't hear it, plugged up. I had allergies.
In the middle of summer.
Yeah, it was weird. I went down south and I got these allergies while I was down south. But we got so much snow on the East Coast now. I think everything's dead this year.
I hope so. Texas especially.
Have any allergies this year, hopefully. But so is the 33 your favorite Packard that you ever drove / had?
Oh jeez.
I mean, like you guys probably have had a lot of cars, so it'd be like.
I mean, a lot of people tell you your independent Packards, independent suspension Packards, which I think is like 37 or 36 was the break-off year, where the big C's have independent front suspension. I mean, one Packard and drive any time of the day, and it drives awesome. Is a very good friend of ours owns the Rolston. You can Google it and read about it. It's a 1941 Rolston limo Packard.
It's the only one.
It's the only one.
I know who has it.
Yeah, and
I saw it.
And it was owned by John D. Rockefeller's daughter, and it was built for her. And the car's all defaced, so that there's no Packard anywhere on the car. It doesn't say Packard on the hubcaps or anything. And
but when you look at it, you know it's a Packard.
Oh yeah, and that car drives awesome. I tell people you can drive that car and you don't realize you have a limo behind you. It drives awesome, and that's a really fun driving car. And then as well, we like Darren's.
That's what I was gonna say. I really like driving Darren's.
We like getting in I like the newer Darren's, the 40, 41, the 41. You know, I like those Darren's. They drive really well.
Did you ever get it? Did you ever drive a 4-door Darren?
No,
super rare.
I've seen the red one that's around here. And,
there's a red one?
Yeah.
I saw RM had one up. I don't know if they sold it this year, if it was an older post, but somebody sent me that and they're like, find this car and do it. And I was like, I've been looking, dude. Those are really hard to find.
I don't mind that. I'm gonna swear it's got a 4-door Darren I can hook you up with.
Yeah, a guy in Canton has a 4-door Darren.
Sweet.
And but yeah, I like. But as far as your big Packards, you know, they'll tell you 32, 33, and 34 are the iconic years, you know, with the V-shaped headlights and fog lights and the V-shaped grille. You know, that's your iconic years, and they don't really change too much between 32, 33, it was just very little changes. But they'll tell people that those are really the Packards that put them on the map. You know, they looked beautiful.
Oh, yeah,
they got rid of the flat grille, and
it's kind of like the Tri-5 Chevys of the Packards, like 55, 56, 57, 32, 33, 34.
Yeah, and they're the lowest production years, especially 33. They only built them for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So, like our car, they only made 75 of them. There's only about 14 in existence.
The only downer with those is, and like I didn't realize how small they were until you're in it. They're narrow.
Oh yeah, they're not a giant car.
After 30, I think it's like after 35 they get wider.
Mm-hmm.
By 39, you can't even touch the other side.
Compared to like the Auburn. The Auburn I feel like is wider. The Auburn we have right now.
I mean, we have a 32 Ford Roadster, and it's not all that different inside. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's a little bit wider, but not much.
Right. All cars.
Just a lot more car.
All cars were like narrow.
Well, in the
like
32
35.
Roadster, you go like this, and you're like touching the rumble seat, and in the Packard, you gotta be like. I stopped driving the 32 Roadster after we got the Packard. I'm like, I'll just drive this to the store now.
Yeah.
I love that car.
My wife's never saw a nice Packard until we went to the Greenfield Village, and one glided past us, and she's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a Packard," and she's like, "I'll get behind that. That's a nice car." Yeah, let's go buy one. I was like, "We're not in the market to buy one of those right now." Yeah.
Eventually, you will.
Yeah.
Are people asking
Yeah,
questions?
20 Cent Motors asked if we've driven a four-wheel torsion bar Packard from 55 or 56. I personally haven't.
Oh, yes.
Like a Caribbean, we've had Bob.
My finger's crooked from a Caribbean.
Yeah, Bob
We
was
can talk about-
Bob was very famous. He would buy any, back in the day, he would buy any 50, 56, 57, like Caribbeans or.
Oh, yeah, we
you
had
know,
a ton of them.
He would buy the Caribbeans with the reversible seats. The seats and had dual quads on them.
Like the white,
And-
brown, pink. He
And it
really
seemed
liked
like
that
almost
painting.
everyone he would buy would not run. So we would have to do the carburetors and go through them. They're very powerful. Now, one we had, if you remember, it was the upgrade. A lot of people upgraded them to, I believe, turbo 400 hydromatic transmissions. They were a better, the Chevy transmission. They'd work better. And I never done it, but people at auctions, when we used to run auctions, they would walk up and jump on the rear bumpers. And if they jumped on the rear bumper, then their starter motors underneath in the back that turned to torsion bars, and the car would jack way up.
Yeah.
And it'd be sitting in the parking lot jacked up, and you'd have to go out and drive it to get it to come back down. But people used to do that at our auctions. They'd go by and step on them with their knees so they jack up.
Yeah.
But they're really good driving cars. They're great driving cars.
Packard offered the torsion bar suspension on all the senior Packards. So the 400 had it, and the Patrician, and the Caribbean.
We did the Lincoln Highway tour, and one of our good friends who owned Hot Topic at the time was an older gentleman that you would never believe to own a Hot Topic, and like the store in the mall.
Yeah.
But he
the
drove,
Gothic store.
yeah, he drove one of those everywhere. Remember
Right,
that?
he
would
did.
he would drive it. I don't know how many cross country trips we'd done and he done, but he would always drive one of those cars every time in one of the cross country trips, and he loved it.
He's he was also the first person to ever give me a ride in a Tesla, which was life changing.
Oh wow. That's
And
awesome.
he had a Tesla with ludicrous mode, and it was like he had where his cars were. It was like an industrial complex outside of LA, I guess. And he's like, "Oh, let's go for a ride in my Tesla," and he just was doing whole shots through this complex. And Matt was in the
And he
front
ordered the
seat.
car Packard Blue.
Yeah.
Nice.
Matt was in the front seat with his sunglasses on his head, and when he hit it, Matt's glasses flew off his head and hit the chest of our friend that was behind
wow.
him because there was so much torque. And I was like, I gotta buy a Tesla.
Yeah. Is your Model Y the first Tesla that you've ever
Yes,
had?
Model Y Performance, yep.
Nice.
And I love it.
I got to drive a P85D, and this was way before the car channel. I was poorer than I am now, and I was like, "There's no way they're gonna let me drive this car." It was at the mall down in Pittsburgh, and they said if anybody wants to drive this car, just write your name down. We'll call you. It's like they're not gonna call me. This car costs 130 grand, and they did. They said, "Hey, you want to bring your whole family and try it?" And I kicked it down McKnight Road, and it, like you said, it was insane.
It's instant. It's
I've
awesome.
always wanted one, but I bought a Prius instead.
There you go.
But
You're electric.
Yeah, it's hybrid. So somebody said, Ed Starr said, saw a 55 Packard in Scottsdale, Arizona in 1978. Very impressive automobile. Yeah, I like the 55 and 56 Packard. I wish they would have done that in their... They kind of like lost their way, in my opinion, like right after World War II. If they could have made like... I know they built that Merlin engine under Rolls-Royce, but if they could have made a smaller version of that and put it into a car, they probably could have... They could have changed history, for one.
Oh, when you think about it, I mean, think about what was going on in the auto industry in the 50s. You know, like Packard and Studebaker were kind of some of the last holdouts before the big three just shot off, you know? I mean, they were probably the two last holdouts before the big three just took off and left everybody in the dust.
There was a guy in Brewster, Ohio. I owned a car eventually, but when I was probably about 15 years old, he bought a 55 two-door Chevy handyman wagon,
Oh wow.
and it was a drag car, and it had a 56 Patrician dual quad engine in it.
Holy cow.
And I wish.
So it had the 374.
And I wish we would have left it alone, but we took it out and put another engine in it. And now, hindsight, I wish that I owned that car in the site with the Packard engine in it, because that would have been really fun to drive around with a Packard dual quad engine in it.
Oh, definitely.
But to think somebody was drag racing a 55 Chevy
yeah.
two-door wagon with a Patrician dual
monster.
quad, or dual quad Caribbean motor in it is really
One
cool.
of the biggest head scratchers is Packard made that awesome engine, and they only used it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they made the block in such a way that the bore centers were like 5 inches. They could have made it huge,
Mm-hmm.
and Studebaker didn't do nothing with. And that's another thing never got. Like, it was a Packard takeover of Studebaker, but Studebaker called. And the only reason Packard didn't survive the 50s is because they merged with Studebaker. And the only reason they merged with Studebaker was because they wanted to survive the 50s. They just picked the wrong person to merge with.
Yeah, they should have. The Packard. After you've been there, I mean, what a place.
I never got to see it. They ripped it down.
Yeah, I think
in the process of
in the
ripping it
process
down.
of been there a few times. Different car tours would go on tour there, and they'd have all these fancy boards. Now this is gonna look like this, and I mean, it was great, but oh my gosh, the millions and millions and millions that would have to be invested to make it happen. I mean, they did revive the Detroit train station, which is awesome, and I never thought I'd live to see that happen. So, yeah, a lot of good automotive history in Detroit.
Definitely.
A lot of sad things too, though. So, like the Packard factory.
Definitely. So what's your favorite car? Like that you?
Jeez.
I know it's like picking a kid.
Favorite car. Well, Matt can tell you what his favorite car is.
My favorite line was when people ask me that, they say, "What's your favorite car?" I said, "The ones that run," because I'm the mechanic, and I'm the one that makes them run. So I always tell people, I don't care what it is, as long as it runs. That's the ones I like.
Nice.
But that's not true. I grew up collecting and building flathead Fords for probably since I was 8-10 years old, and I still have a lot of the flathead cars and stuff that I had when I was little, and I like flathead Fords a lot. We have a original paint Woody. We have a 32 Roadster. We drove our 32 Roadster to LA and back.
Oh wow.
LA to Northern California and then back.
Yeah, we drove it back, and we drove it out and drove it back.
Did you have any issues on that
Not
drive?
with the drive, not with the engine or anything. We had electrical issues, but
The starter was
yeah, we had the
sticking.
starter screwed up.
And I think by the time we got back, the throwout bearing was out of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, we messed the starter up. We had to tear it apart and put it back together, and then we lost the ignition switch, but that was due to the 13 hours of rain we drove in with no windows. And
we actually camped the whole time too. We had a tent, so
that's awesome.
we took the rumble seat out and we'd set up the tent and camp for the night and go. We went out to the LA Roadster show,
That's
which
awesome.
is Father's Day weekend.
I want to buy a 59 cross country Rambler wagon and go cross country in it.
That'd be awesome. Bob loved Rambler wagons.
Because they're, the seats all fold down. But the Ambassador would be cooler because it's got a 327 in it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get the gas mileage.
Bob and I, Bob used to, be the president of the Lincoln Highway. So we'd done 3 times. We did once in the 32 Roadster, but we did the Lincoln Highway in a 46 Woody. We did a Woody. We had the Woody. We did.
Oh yeah.
We did from California
That was in
home.
2013. That was the 100th anniversary.
And then we did it in a 47 Packard Super.
Oh wow.
And we had it all done up like a race car. It was cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe I can find a picture.
That was a
That's
cheater
awesome.
car. It had 12 volt overdrive, air conditioning.
But it didn't look like.
But it didn't look.
It wasn't like
super
a street
modified,
rod or
but
anything like that.
Well, you need overdrive to go that far.
oh yeah, it was a lot
And the
of fun.
Woody, we actually did 200 miles of the desert of the original Lincoln Highway alignment. It took us 12 hours.
Oh.
It was insane. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. But it was like,
That's awesome.
you were driving through, oh my gosh. And remember when we got to the hotel that night, the oil bath looked like chocolate milk. There was so much
We had to do
dust.
so much work on the cars.
Like a body
from
mount
driving
came
through
loose.
the desert.
Oh, wow.
It was
and,
awful.
I never even really thought about that. Yeah, that would be
We
that
got,
would be
like-
insane.
Well, and then we all got stuck going up a mountain. to the point that they had to end up like the road. I guess the road was deteriorated so bad, and they're like, oh, so this Tahoe had to come and pull us like up and over the final, you know, by it was nuts.
Because there was a Model A's that left earlier that day, but they were trying to pull the hill, and we got stuck behind them, and then everybody started vapor locking. And then as we stopped, then you were stuck on the side of the mountain, so the Suburban would pull you to the top, and would release you.
Oh, wow.
And you would go down the other side of the mountain in
Switchbacks.
second gear with the ignition off, and you'd be cooling down the car, you know, with the engine turning.
Yeah.
And then after you're about halfway down the mountain, you would turn the ignition on, and then
Pop
the
the
car would
clutch.
start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Remember what happened when we got to the bottom? That
so
guy was like
we
parked
got-
the wrong
yeah.
way in the road. He was parked this way in the road.
sideways, and it was dirt and dust, and you couldn't see
It
him.
was like
Oh,
powder.
God.
Yeah.
So we had
So it was like driving through smoke in NASCAR, you know.
That's insane.
But
it was a really fun trip. We had lots of fun. We have lots of that's definitely I can speak for Matt when I say that's our favorite part of cars is it's being out there in your car and actually seeing what it's like to drive your car when you're different than they were 100 years ago, you know. So it's fun to just get in that mindset, and then people that you tour with are you just make really, really good lifelong friends when you're touring, because you go through all kinds of circumstances. You know, you're dealing with weather, or you're dealing with your car breaking down, or
you hit a deer,
Oh,
or
jeez.
you hit anything.
or your car catches on fire.
It hit a deer, like a Volvo P. It wasn't a P18, it was earlier than that, but he hit a deer, and it.
Did he survive?
Well, yeah, he hit a deer, but the alternator come loose, and he didn't know it, and it started wearing the alternator. The insides of the alternator were bolted on the motor. So we actually ended up that night, we were filled the cavity in the alternator full of toothpicks, and then kept tightening it, and we actually completed the rest of the trip to California, and he drove it back to Florida.
Oh, wow.
On toothpicks.
On toothpicks
That's
inside
crazy.
that, you know.
Not a good person to have on a tour.
But like, and that's what I tell people with them tours. If there's any one thing you got to bring, it doesn't matter what car, what tools, whatever. You got to bring a good attitude.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a good attitude, you're gonna make it miserable for everybody else.
Right.
And you just gotta roll. Like we've had cars break down. Like one time we had a guy that burned a set of points up, or burn his Patronics up in his Imperial the night of the starting dinner.
Oh, wow.
And so we worked on the car, putting points in it, because he had nothing left when he put the Patronics in. He threw all the stuff away for points.
Oh, wow.
And so we were scavenging people's toolboxes to get screws and stuff, and we put points in it. That night we worked on it, but at the same time when he burnt the gauge out, or burnt the Patronics out, he burnt the amp meter gauge out, and on an Imperial, a 60s Imperial, everything runs through the amp gauge.
Oh, wow.
So we had to tear the entire dash out of the car to take the two wires off the amp gauge and wire them together so that he could keep driving for the
That's
rest
crazy.
of the, you know. So we were probably just shy of 6 hours working on that car just so he could start the trip,
Wow.
you know.
What's your favorite tour? Do you guys do how many tours do you guys do a year?
It just depends. I mean, clubs don't tour every year. I mean, tours are a lot of work for people to put together, and I think that's kind of, people don't realize that. But when you're making a tour, you're figuring out where places anywhere from 50 to 100 people are going to go, you know, and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and fun museum stops, and where they're all going to stay at night. So I'd say on average, we probably do at least 2 tours a year. I really like touring with 2 different groups. I love touring with the Classic Car Club of America. The CC8 people are a lot of fun. We have a lot of good friends with them. That's a tour we would do in our Packard. And then we also like touring with the Greenhorn region, which is a region of the AACA, which is the young people's region of the AACA. And we did a really fun tour last Memorial Day weekend, I guess it was. And it was Route 30 through Pennsylvania. So it was
Awesome.
like a bit of a clover, like a clover leaf or a hub tour, they call them, where you stay in the same place every night and then you go somewhere different every day. So it was based out of the old Lincoln Motor Court, which is a super cute motel from the 40s. It's like a bunch of different little cottages that's run
cool.
right on Route 30, kind of near Bedford, Pennsylvania. So we had a really good time on that tour last year. Of course, we did the Salem tour where you and Matt met at the Concord.
Yeah.
And then Lincoln Highway tours are big. You can be on them you can be on them, back in the old days, they would last up to 20 days, which is a long
Holy
time
cow.
to be out on a tour.
Did you guys ever do the Great Race?
No, we never have.
No.
No, it looks fun.
We've
Yeah.
had friends that would do it, and we had a guy from Canton this year that owns Canton Transmission. He went on it. And he was a
Yeah, the
mechanic
tech, yeah,
on a
for-
tech on a
For
car,
2 cars. Yep.
and he really enjoyed it.
Yeah. You would almost have to take a mechanic with you if you're not mechanically inclined, or you know.
I think the cars would be fun because you're being timed and you're racing against yourself to a point, but I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We've just never done anything like that.
He's got a Mustang up there right now from the Great Race that he's
Nice.
working on.
What year?
It's a 5 or 6.
Nice.
Yeah.
A Canton transmission. They do a lot of vintage transmission work.
Nice. Yeah, nobody's asking any questions about anything. Bummer. Like, that was the whole premise. But, yeah, I love your office. It's teal. Teal's my favorite color.
Yeah, I really like aqua. It's funny because Ray painted the bathroom, and then we built this office on, and he's like, "Oh, I'll paint your office," or the people were here painting the office or something, and he's like, "You painted it the same color as the bathroom," and I was like, "Oh." The bathroom, I was going for like a golf blue, and then I bought a can of orange paint. I want to put a stripe up.
Oh, nice.
So, did you see? We can talk about this. Did you see that the Steve McQueen Porsche was a no sale at the Mecum auction? I guess the high bid was $25 million, and Jerry Seinfeld said no go.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure he paid 14 for it at Pebble Beach in 2017. 14.1, somewhere around there.
I had been in that car before.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It was in Amelia Island in about 2012, right after they restored it, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I just found out about the auction thing, and it's really cool because you can get access to stuff that you don't ever really get to see.
It's a great way. I tell people, even if you don't want to buy a car, like especially Mecum Kissimmee, which just passed, but Mecum Indy coming up in Indianapolis in May is also another great place. But it's a great way to go and see lots of different cars at once. I mean, I think Mecum Kissimmee, I think they had something like 4,000 cars. I mean, what a car show to go to, and
Yeah.
it lasted, I think 11 or 12 days. But and then it's just really neat. You and I have talked a lot about Hershey. That's another, the RM's auction. Hershey is another great place to go and see some really, really wonderful pre-war examples that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Right.
So auctions are, if they're open to the public, lots of times you can buy a spectator pass. It's a great way to see things. Like, even if you don't plan to buy, or who knows, maybe you'll get there and decide you want to buy something.
Right.
So.
Right. You never know. The other cool thing about the car hobby is that nobody tells you about is like, when you see people at like the Salem Concord event, you'll see them at an auction, and then you'll see else. It's like a giant family.
Right.
In a
It
weird
is.
way.
It really. Some of Matt, my best friends, they're auction people, and they're all in Arizona right now without us. And
Yeah.
We're here freezing.
Yeah. Freezing.
But we have some events we're going to be going to in the next couple months, so it'll be fine. We'll meet up again. There's Amelia Island. There's Moto Miami, which is RM's event, which we're going to.
Greensboro.
Then there's we can talk about that. The Greensboro Auto Auction, GAA.
That's the one in North Carolina.
Yeah, Classics at the Palace. That's a great event. They have it 3 to 4 times a year, and that's probably the cleanest auction you'll ever go to. That's why they call it at the Palace. All the cars are parked inside, never go outside, never get dirty, never get dusty.
Oh,
Nine-
wow.
Climate controlled.
900 cars.
It's a wonderful auction to check out. And then, of course,
When does that start?
so that'll be the end of February. I think February 22nd, somewhere around there, is the next one. And then they'll have another one in July and another one in November. And sometimes they throw one in like in April too, but it's GAA. And then, of course, we'll all be back in Auburn. Auburn, I guess, I don't know what they call it.
The
We used to
worldwide
call it
auction?
Auburn Spring, but the worldwide auction. I think they call it the enthusiast auction because I think they also have a tour, the enthusiast tour, sometime around the same period. So, yeah.
That Auburn, Indiana show with the Auburn Court and Duesenberg, that was a pretty cool show. Especially when you went down to the town square, it was almost like selling his cars because that's what he did.
That show, I can't say enough good about that show. If you love any kind of car, it's the Auburn Court Duesenberg Museum in Auburn, Indiana is one of the best museums you can ever visit. I mean, you're actually visiting a showroom that sold those cars in period. So it's a beautiful place. They have an excellent display of cars. They do have some that rotate in and out, but then every Labor Day weekend, they have the Auburn Duesenberg Festival, and it's crazy. You will never see more. This year especially was the year.
I never saw that many Duesenbergs
Right.
on one spot.
I think what was it this year? The year of the supercharged car, wasn't it?
Yep, 861.
Yeah.
It was the most expensive piece of property in probably the state when all those Duesenbergs were there.
Oh, I mean, it's fun. I mean, you never know. I remember.
How many were there? Do you think
I think there was 18.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there was 18.
I was gonna say 20. But
Yeah, somewhere around there.
it was insane.
But I mean, there was every kind of, body style and coach boater that you could think of that had them there.
Right. They even had the Duesenberg race cars that you never see.
Right. I think those were out of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, maybe. But yeah, I can't recommend that enough. It's a great weekend. I mean, of course, they have the auction going on, but they have a lot of other events. They have a parade for the Parade of Classics, which we were in for the first time this year in Auburn that we drove, and it went great. And
Yeah, if you're looking for an Auburn, convertible Auburn, non-supercharged, what's that, 33? They got one for sale.
No.
It's a
31.
31?
Yep.
Yep.
No, it's colors,
Yeah.
which could be a selling point or not a selling point, depending on sports you like.
It's a convertible, and is that a Survivor?
Yeah, I'm not to say it was restored probably in the late 70s.
Early 80s, somewhere
Early
in there.
80s.
We have a lot of paperwork with
And
it.
it runs really well. It's an 8-cylinder.
It's you guys were in the parade.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
did the parade awesome, and if you could drive an old car in a parade,
Yeah.
that's it. I know that's what Matt said. He's like, we should.
It has a
keep this
touring
car.
end in it and stuff. Not a 2-speed, but it's got a touring end in it, and it drives out really nice.
Yeah. You're telling a lot of truth there. If you could drive an old car in a parade, I drove a '52 Chevy in a parade, and it's with the cable clutch and people, it just wanted to overheat. You're not going fast enough.
Well, and what's neat about the Auburn, like I tell people, it not only gets you into Auburn Duesenberg Club events, but also it's recognized as a full classic, so you can participate in the Classic Car Club America events, and then of course you can be in AACA events. So really, it's a great car. And the one we have is you're probably not going to find a cheaper Auburn or Auburn convertible than
Right.
What we're asking. So it's a great entry level car for somebody to get into all three clubs.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to find a car that does all three. That's affordable.
That's what's hard about full classics is a lot of people say, why isn't there more young people on the classic car club? Well, full classics aren't cheap cars for the most part. So.
Right. Like to your point, like we were talking about those Imperials, like 1932 through 33 Imperials were $500,000.
Oh, the ones that was Hershey were beautiful.
They were so gorgeous, and like the way that they were underneath the chandeliers and stuff on the carpet, it was like, man, that's awesome. That you saw what they were going to go for, and you're like, I can't afford that. That's more than my house.
They were really the top sellers of the RM Hershey auction this year was the Chryslers.
Yeah, but now that they offered, just like they offered the V12 of Lincolns, the 40s V12 Lincolns, they offered them now as a full classic. You can buy those pretty entry level, pretty reasonable. Like I know where there's unrestored 41, the gold with all the gold in it. It's the club sedan, so it's not the coupe, but it is like the club sedan, but it's red, it's painted, and it has all the gold done. And I know that car needs finished, but that car can probably be purchased in the mid 15s. You know what I mean, and finish it themselves, and now you've got a full classic for, pretty affordable. You know what I mean?
And something your whole family can fit in.
Right. So that's the nice thing is you can pick out a full classic that is reasonable.
As far as like, do you ever think the AACA is gonna like, what's the year? What's the cutoff year? Is it like 48 or 49?
The AACA, it's 20 for AACA. It's 25 years and older.
Not AACA, the CC.
Oh.
Classic Car Club of America.
Well, they sometimes like the newest
it's
cars.
more by chassis.
Yeah, the newest cars they let in is some sort of Chrysler Town and Country in the 40s, and then I think they don't have anything newer than that.
But it has to do by wheelbase and engine.
And also, it has to be kind of like limited production stuff.
Yeah, but wheelbase and chassis, wheelbase and engine has to be big, bigger engine and wheelbase. That's why you don't see like the 140s and the 120s and stuff.
Yeah, I always wondered that. I was like, because I want a 115C
Yeah.
from like 37 through 39. But those cars right now, for whatever reason, people want like 40, 50 grand for them. You can buy a Super 8 for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And because nobody wanted those cars because they're 6 cylinders, you can't take them to a CCCA classic. They're not classic status cars. So you might as well just buy the Super 8 and then you could go to any show that you want to go to.
Yeah.
You can find, I mean, I'm sure you know this, but for people that are watching, like you can see whatever, you know, the Classic Car Club America accepts on their website. They have an entire listing of, you know, everything they accept. And I guess, you know, you're probably maybe watching this and thinking like, why does it matter? It doesn't matter. I mean, you should buy and drive whatever car you enjoy. But if you're interested in showing a car with that group or touring with that group, those are the kinds of cars that are accepted in those parameters. For, you know, obviously with the Auburn Cord Duesenberg, you have to have an Auburn Cord or Duesenberg.
Right.
Full, you know, with the CCCA, you have to have a full classic, and the AACA is open to which, so right now that's what, 1990, well, soon to be 2000.
And the Lincoln Highway Tour and anything.
Yeah, Lincoln Highway Tour, people would, you know, like through the Lincoln Highway Association, they have a great website.
I mean, you take
People drive modern cars
you
on
can take
that
a
tour.
modern car, you can take a street rod, you can take a old car, you can take anything. You know, I mean that's and that's fun too. You know, I mean.
The CCACA people, when I met them at Salem, they're all really nice, down to earth people, which is crazy because they're driving like really expensive cars, and you would think it would be the opposite. Usually, it's usually the opposite. Like the grumpy people are usually the ones that like.
And we're all out to have the same fun.
Yeah, that's what's nuts about it. Like everybody's just down to earth. I met this guy named Roy who drove his Bentley down from Michigan, and he said he doesn't trailer any of his cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's awesome. Ed Starr said he'd like to attend Pebble Beach Concords, but he doesn't have any fancy clothes for such a high class event. Is that really, you dress up in suit and tie to do that?
Oh yes, it's as much of a fashion parade as it is a car show.
Nice.
And it's really evolved. I mean, it's a wonderful event, but it's really involved into just so much more than a car show. And it's so many people, and it's so crowded, and it's so expensive to do anything. I mean, I think it's great to go. I think everyone should go and see it at least once in their lifetime. I mean, it's a beautiful setting, but it is a lot different than going to the Dairy Queen on a Friday night.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna apply for a press pass. If I get it, I'm gonna go.
I think it's a great idea. I think you should.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. The worst thing is they say no.
You would find a lot of cars to talk about out there.
Oh, I know.
Over the course of the weekend, not just the show on
And
Sunday.
it's not just the cars; it's the people that go to that event.
Right, and there's not just. I mean, there's several shows leading up to that. I mean, for the week before, even there's several different shows.
Well, like for instance,
there's Exotics on Canary
if you didn't want to go to the actual show, a fun thing to go to, and every car has to be on it, is they have the morning of the tour. And so you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning when they start lining up on the road, and every car, that's in Pebble Beach, it has to be on the tour, correct?
Yeah, I think every car being shown is expected to be on the tour.
And so, like the morning I went, I mean, you'd see the electric Corvette.
Oh wow!
I mean, you'd see whatever was there, and it's all lined up, and the people are all dressed up, ready to go on the tour, and that's free. You can walk up and down the street, see all the cars, see them in their.
I mean, you're super close to them.
Running.
They're right here.
Where if you go to Pebble Beach and you're walking around, unless the car gets pulled for an award, you're probably not going to hear it run.
Right. And they're all roped off too. Like you need special permission to get in there.
Right, and this is where you just walk down a double lane paved road, and there's hundreds of cars parked for miles, and they're getting ready to go on the tour. And you can hear them all fire up, and
I think to win Best of Show, you have to go on the tour. So I guess if you don't care about winning Best of Show.
Yeah, and so so you got to remember, these cars are cars that people just built to go there. So I mean, not all of them start that morning. When they all get in them, and they won't start.
There's a big difference between Concours cars and tour cars.
And I mean, there's lots of times that we've pushed 4 or 5 cars to push start to go on the tour. Because they got to go on the tour to be eligible to be picked. You know what I mean?
Those cars aren't light.
And I love it because just as we were talking about earlier, I mean, fairly wealthy gentleman has a car trying to get best show and it doesn't start, he just wants people to help him push it to get it running.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So we're all pushing, a multi-million-dollar car down the road to get it running, which is awesome because everybody's trying to help.
Yeah.
Because all they want to do is get the guy to go on the tour so that he's eligible,
Yeah.
so everybody's helping. But that's a free event that's there, or I tell people go to trucker parking.
Yeah.
There's a place called trucker parking where all the trucks go that haul all the cars for Amelia Island, and they store all the cars for Amelia Island.
Oh wow.
So if you go to trucker parking in the morning, it's a field full of semis. You can watch all the cars come out of the trailers in the morning.
Oh wow.
And that's a free event.
I never really thought of that. See,
So-
like it's always good to know people that have been there, and then they know this. Like when I went to Auburn, I didn't have a clue where the show was. Is back. They went down to the town square. I didn't know any of that. Lewis said the first days of Mecum Indy before higher price cars weekend, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that, Mecum Indy. Yeah, I mean, Mecum Kissimmee, we have a friend that took 75 cars to sell at Mecum Kissimmee.
Oh, wow.
And he sold them all the very first, I think like Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
He sells them the first week.
And he does really well with
Very
that
well.
weekend. And when
Wow.
you're having, it's just hard though, when you're having an auction for 10 or 12 days, and you can't expect everybody to be there for the entire thing. I mean, that's crazy.
Like he says, he sells them before the circus starts.
Because by the time you
Yes.
get to I think Mecum just wrapped up because this week's Barrett Jackson. By the time you get to Friday, Saturday, second week of Kissimmee, I mean, you can't even move on the bid floor because there's so many people.
Right.
I mean, how many were really there to actually buy?
We bought a big classic there once, and we really liked it. We bought a '39 Cadillac V16.
Oh,
wow.
Mecum Kissimmee, yep.
And then
With the alien-looking
it was-
flathead 16.
yeah, it was one of 3 ever built
For the Woolrich family.
for the Woolrich family.
Wow.
And we sold it to a client in Salem, Ohio, and it was an awesome car. We bought it at
It was
Mecum.
all original.
It was all original, paint peeled off of it, and just like we like them. And
Wow.
we bought it and drove it out. It had 5,000 miles on it. And,
So, which one do you like better? Do you like the first generation V16 with the overhead valves, or do you like the later generation? The later generation's rarer with the flathead. They make the same power.
Yeah, I like the later ones, the late 30 ones. I could probably fairly say I've had more of the early ones more on fire than than the later ones.
Nice.
But the older ones had the vacuum tanks, with on the firewall, the vacuum tanks that were full of fuel. So when they backfired and the carburetors were downdraft,
Oh.
you had quite an excitement.
Yeah.
So,
I never even really thought.
yeah.
Yeah, that would suck.
I've had more of the early V16s on fire than the later V16s. We'll say that.
Yeah.
But they both run good when they're running, and but I like the later ones. They actually run really well. That car ran beautiful. It was one of the first times we bought a big classic in an auction and got in it and drove it. And it was really funny because when the client flew down to buy it from Salem, Ohio, he flew down to Florida. We have a place down in Florida, and he walked into the garage and he goes, "The car's awesome." He goes, "I'll take it." He goes, "What do you think it's going to take to run?" I said, "The car runs and drives perfect."
Oh wow.
And he didn't even know run. And so he got in it and we drove it for about 45 minutes and had a blast in it. We had his family, our family. It was a 4-door limo convertible. And
Wow.
so we had his family, our family. We were all in it driving it around for probably 45 minutes in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And we had a blast.
Wow.
But
Dead smooth, super
yeah,
comfy ride.
yeah.
Wow. That's the goal of my channel. I want to get more people into the pre-war cars because they're cool and
Mhm.
We'll have to do some, when the weather warms up, we'll have to do some ride along and stuff. That'd be
yeah,
fun.
that'd be great. I'll sit behind you, so it'd be like what
We had a
Respected.
yes.
We had a Model T day here. Matter of fact, Jack just walked in. He's walking through the showroom, and Jack,
Jack's our intern.
intern. We taught him how to drive Model Ts, and then everybody that showed up that day, we made them drive the Model T.
Nice.
We wanted everybody that came that day to learn how to drive a Model T. So
They were going to
awesome.
do that with the Volkswagen next summer.
yeah,
Because we have some people that want to learn to drive stick shift, and Volkswagen's a pretty easy car to learn stick shift on.
Yeah.
So,
Beetle.
yeah, Beetle.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I had a Carmen Gio once. They're pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
I said we played Never Have I Ever, and I said Never Have I Ever ran out of gas, and then the very next day I ran out of gas. I was like,
Jinx
damn.
yourself.
Well, it had a floater in it, and like when it would just bounce around a lot. But then whenever it goes down like this, you're done. You're done.
Yeah. If you have an old car, running out of gas is a pretty common thing.
Yep. So.
Did you wanna? You said you were gonna show us some pictures of some cars.
Yeah. So, but it's kind of biased.
It's kind of biased.
I was just searching the internet for different cars. I was gonna say, what do you guys think of that?
Chrysler Imperial.
Chrysler Imperial.
Gorgeous.
We already kind of talked about this car. Those cars, these are the cars that were bringing $500,000 at Hershey. But if one word to describe that car, what would it be?
Elegant.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to come up with your own word.
Elegant. I quite a bit. It was from New York's Carmine's, and drove it quite a bit. And I actually drove it through the RM auction, and it was awesome to drive. It really was.
So your word is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome, elegant. That's cool. This one predates it. This was the Chrysler before it.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the choice, would you choose this one over what comes later, or would you choose the 3033 over this?
Well, these are going to drive more like a hot rod. You know what I mean? Like more like a hot rod-ish, shorter base, wheelbase car. The other one's going to be more luxury, but I would pick the bigger one.
You pick the bigger one?
I'm going to show you my favorite Chrysler here. I'm going to pull it up for you.
I like Packards.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two Chryslers.
Gabor does a great job with the photos.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Gabor.
Yep,
Hi,
shout
man,
out to
LTD.
Gabor. Yep.
So there's two Chryslers that are standouts to me. So one of them is this 32 Chrysler CG Imperial Custom Roadster,
Oh,
which I don't know if you're familiar with that car. That was in the Mark Smith collection. It sold about a year and a half ago.
The top is weird. The top almost looks like
Mm-hmm.
So there's that
like
one.
Auburn Speedster.
Yeah, I love that car. And then the other one that I love, worldwide, sold in Arizona probably about 3 years ago. And it just it's kind of like it looks like oh, I was right because it was Scottsdale 2022. It's just like straight up gangster car. So that and this one were my favorite. This is also a 32.
Don't you find it interesting that they built the most elegant, most beautiful cars when nobody could buy them? 32 was a stellar year.
I didn't think about it. 32 Fords.
No, that was I believe a 32 Packard you had.
Yeah, it was a 32 Packard 12.
Yeah. A Hyman car, and the only difference really between 32 and 33 was they closed the fender off, so you couldn't see the bottom of the spare tire.
Oh, interesting.
The front fender. So when you looked at the front fender, they would come right down by the front wheel, and they closed the fender off. Where 32, it's open. You can see underneath it, But that's a beautiful car.
Yeah.
See how you can see the spare tire? You can see the spare tire from underneath. In 33, 34, they closed it off so you couldn't see the bottom of the spare tire. So it had like a skirt on the bottom of the fender,
Oh, wow. Just look at how elegant that is. That's a 32 Packard 12 that was offered for sale from Hyman. I don't know if he still has it or not.
So this is that other Chrysler.
Oh yeah, I love those. Those are so gorgeous.
This is the one that worldwide sold at
But
Scottsdale in 2022.
How many of those did they make?
One.
Just one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's custom bodied by Bowman and
gosh.
Schwartz. I'm pretty sure.
That's an
Bowman and Schwartz.
absolute gorgeous car. I love this Chrysler.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna have a Chrysler Imperial, I'm gonna have one of those two. You know what? Heck with the hundreds of thousands. They're multi-million.
Yeah, if I was going to have one, I was going to go to the cheapest one, 4-door sedan.
There we go.
They're still over $100,000. But so if you had one word to describe this absolutely gorgeous car, what would it be?
Ask the man who owns one. No.
There you go.
I always change it to ask the woman who owns one.
Ask the woman who owns one. Man, that's a gorgeous car. And this
The shovel nose.
is a 1932 Packard Light 8. That was Packard's attempt to make a cheap car.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't like those. I don't
But-
like shovel nose
But
Packards.
it's funny, a lot of people do. We have a client from California and Florida. He goes back and forth, and he collects quite a wild range of cars. And he is hunting a shovel nose.
Yeah.
You know, that's what he wants. He likes it, you know. And
I've been looking for cars to take to the below, I should say, or older.
This is for the Old Car Festival that's in September.
Yeah, it's for the Old Car Festival, which is like my
We've heard
favorite.
about that. It's a lot of fun.
Oh God, you gotta go. It's like the best show this side of the Mississippi because you get to drive this stuff around in the street.
We have a good friend, Kyle Blake. You're probably out there. Yeah, him and a lot of his friends go, and they really enjoy it. They actually say they don't want to tell any more people about it because it's so much fun. They don't want it to like
Yeah.
blow up. So
Gary-
I'll be mad I'm talking about it on YouTube.
Gary Hauser invited me not last year but the year before, and he's like, "It'll ruin you," and it did.
Mm-hmm.
He's like Hershey pales in comparison. Like it's insane, and I never thought that anything would pale.
You want
in
to talk
comparison.
about amazing Lincolns? The Lincoln Gary at the King Classic Car Museum. The Lincoln they just finished is
Oh yeah,
beyond gorgeous.
yeah. It's been on the channel. Funny story about that. So I was sicker than a dog at Salem, and Gary's like, he's like, "Hey, we're gonna get out of here. Catch you later." I
It was
didn't.
super hot that day.
Oh, it's super hot it was hotter than hell that day, and I didn't say anything, but I was going to offer, "Hey, if you have any problems, just call me and I'll come help you or whatever." And like literally 10 minutes later, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I'm broke down. If you can come push me and maybe get some people to help you, because this thing's. I've pushed cars. I've worked at classic car dealerships. I've broke down on the side of the road one time in a bubble top 409, and I had to push it off the side of the road, and I was by myself, and that sucked. But nothing. I've never pushed anything that heavy. Is that we there was like 6 of us, and it took all 6 of us, everything we had, to push it up this little hill and across the street to his trailer. Thank God he had a winch, and he just winched it up in the trailer. But
Yeah, probably vapor
my God,
locked. It was a hot day.
yeah, that was his maiden voyage in it too.
Oh,
And
that's
he was,
right, yeah.
He was afraid.
You can see it on display at the Canton Classic Car Museum now. They have it parked in there. So
Oh, nice. Did they have it where the Cadillac was?
they put
yeah, they have
it.
it sitting sideways right there.
That was
in
just
front of
there
them. I was
yesterday,
just there
actually.
yesterday.
Nice.
But well, it didn't help that day that we all got stuck in the. We had a parade that morning. There again, the word parade, and
Oh, to get to the Concord.
and it was
Salem.
supposed to be a fast-moving parade with a cop
It
escort,
wasn't.
but we got caught by the train.
Oh.
And so not only did we go through town, but we got caught by the train. So everybody had to sit there, and it's a slow entrance onto the show field. So it was like, yeah, if the cars were going to be fussy, it was going to be that day.
Yeah.
You know.
And like, you're like, where should I put my hands to? Because like you know how much money he has invested in that thing. There's like no expense spared kind of thing, and you're like, I don't want to put my hand on it to push it.
They all take paint the same.
Yeah, it's insane.
Ooh, look at that.
So what do you guys think of that? This is a 1929 L29 Cord, first mass production front wheel drive car, and it's powered by a Lycoming straight 8.
They're a really cool car to drive. The shifter is actually in the dash, and it pulls and shifts as you twist it.
Oh wow!
So you pull the shifter out of the dash. It's literally in the dash, and you pull back, and then you rotate it third and fourth, or first and second.
That's insane.
So like when you're in the front, it's first and second. It's a 4-speed just like anything else, but you pull. It's like the shifter telescopes out of the dash.
Oh wow!
And it's really cool to drive. They're crude as far as the
I
steering.
was gonna say, is it heavy steering?
Yeah, it is. We always we laughed one year because we had an auction at RM at Amelia Island, and they had just put down chipped bark, and nothing could make it up the hill. and we got one of those out, and it drove right up the hill fine.
Oh,
you
wow.
know, and climbed the hill. You know, got
First
traction
front
and
wheel
everything.
drive car.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're great cars, and I think they're beautiful. A friend of ours, Greg Arnasian, just restored a Roadster, wasn't it? Or was that?
Oh, orange and black one.
Yeah, it's an orange and black one, and it toured. And oh my gosh, it won some events, but it was a beautiful car.
Do
And
you prefer the Al Leamy L cord or do you prefer the Gordon Burrig? It comes later.
I prefer. I think the Gordon beer.
Yeah,
I think
the
that's
later
more of what Accord is known for. Is that coffee? That's
Yeah.
the telltale sign of Accord. I think if you'd show that to a lot of people, they wouldn't even realize at one time that's what Accord was. You know.
Yeah. A lot of people forget that came first.
that's
My
a little more
favorite-
truckish to drive. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but awesome car.
My favorite story about Cords is my grandpa told me all the time I was growing up, just outside of Magnolia, on his farm, people along the, I guess it'd be the Tuscarawas River, there was like a picnic spot, and people would go down there, and one day, obviously in the probably early 30s, which is nuts, a Cord drove down there, which was a big deal for any car, and they're like, oh, don't take your car down there, you're gonna get stuck, and they were like, no, we have front wheel drive. Well, they got stuck anyways, and they had to use like their farm horses to pull
Oh, wow.
the car out. So
To your point
people
about
didn't
Packard.
listen back then either.
To your point about Packard Darrens a little while ago, I got to do a couple of Packard Darrens, and I was shocked at how small they are. They're very well. They make a couple different wheelbase versions. I think I was in the short wheelbase version every time I've ever done one, but they're very tight, and the windshield, like when I'm sitting in
Oh
it,
yeah,
comes
that's
up
not as
to
Vermont.
here.
Yeah.
But Cord, I did a Cord Phaeton, the one that's at the Auto Museum in Canton. The windshield goes up over your head. You got way more space in
You have
it.
a beautiful Duval windshield on Cords. Darrens are kind of hard to get in and out of too. Kind of the way
Yeah,
the
they're.
dash comes around.
So what do you think of this? This is a 1957 Studebaker Golden Hawk, and my favorite color combination for that car, black and white.
I kind of prefer the gold ones.
You like the gold one?
Yeah.
What was the one that was? I like the green and like what was that? What was that? What wasn't a Golden Hawk? The green and yellow, like the ones that are chartreuse. Remember those?
Like Myron Vernus.
Yeah,
has one.
Myron has one.
Yeah.
But
Did you ever get to drive one of these?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I've
for
owned
sure.
a 4-speed Golden Hawk.
No
and I
shit.
really liked it. It was a
I
lot
like
of
that it
fun.
has wire wheels.
Four-speed Golden Hawks are rarer than hen's teeth.
Yeah, there was a guy, Louis Brio in Massillon, Ohio. He used to take me for rides in one when I was a little kid, and I just loved them. They're fast.
I want one so bad.
I like the
there was
wire wheels, but I don't like the white walls.
there was one at Classic Auto Malls. They just sold it for like 32 grand,
Mhm.
and I was like, man,
That's
if I
a
had the money,
Big
I'd
bang for the
been
buck.
all over it because. And my wife's never seen this car in person, and I'm pretty sure if I came home, she'd be like, "That's my car."
That looks like that was in the
That's a
Hyman
that's
photo
a high.
booth.
So
Jessica Bohr.
I use a lot of his pictures.
Oh, here we go, an Edsel.
What do you think of that?
I love them. We just sold an Edsel convertible,
I love them too.
and we had an all original one, and we really liked it a lot.
The gears on the steering wheel is crazy.
And they offered an E400 version, which was a 400, and it had a 400 4-barrel, and they were really fast cars.
Yeah, they're super underrated in my opinion. Like I believe that's a pacer.
I like that color combination. They also had a turquoise. It's kind of weird because it looks like there was like a turquoise boot on it. So
Yeah.
maybe it has a turquoise and white interior with a black and red exterior.
Yeah, somebody
That's a lot going on.
repainted it or something.
Oh, now we're talking.
1957 Studebaker.
Those are the
not
cars.
Studebaker. This is a DeSoto Adventurer.
Love those.
It's
I mean,
a
how
really
can
cool
you not
story.
like that?
Bob didn't buy an Adventure, but he had us restore a golden bolt. It was gold and black, wasn't it? Or gold, two and gold. 57, and we actually restored it for a guy who worked really high up in Kentucky Fried Chicken.
In Louisville, Kentucky.
In Louisville, Kentucky, at the
Wow.
headquarters, and we restored it for him, and it was a really cool car, neat car. But to get this chrome strip on the top above the window, it does not screw in; it presses on, and so it has clips. And once the car's all painted, you have to lay tape down and then press that piece of stainless down
Oh,
to get
wow.
it to clip. And those are awesome cars.
I love these, and they're drastically underrated.
And they really
And the
are
fins
fast.
are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, those
That's
are
a good one.
awesome.
We used to have a dual quad Hemi convertible letter car. Megan and I did, and it was a really neat car.
We should buy another. We should buy another car like that. I don't feel like we have anything.
Guess that's all further I got. I was gonna add some other pictures, but I didn't. I'll do it again sometime. You know.
Yeah. This has been fun.
Yeah, the internet. The internet.
We're back.
We're back again. 20 Cent Motor says the Black Hawk Museum.
Oh,
Virgil Exner.
Virgil Exner. The Black Hawk Museum is amazing. That was one of the places that Bob used to work at. He had some crazy stories about Bugattis and all kinds of big cars from there.
Does the Black Hawk Museum still exist?
Yeah, I think so. I know that the founder, one of the founders just died, Don Williams, but I think it's still there. There's there's an organization you can look up online. It's called NAM. It's the National Association of Automotive Museums, NAAM, and they have, listings for all the museums. I know their conference is coming up at the Peterson here in April. I sometimes go to their conferences because they're very interesting to hear about.
Yeah. 20 Cent Motor says he went there 20 plus years ago. Black Hawk had 2 Isotta Francinis. I think I pronounced that right. I got yelled at a couple of times because I said I was out of fresh. I said it some other way. I'm not the best at pronunciations, but yeah, they're huge. I've never got to see one of those in person, and maybe once. I think they have one at Gilmore.
Oh, the Gilmore! Wow, that's a place.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cars in a little bit of place.
Yeah, the last time I was there, they had more stuff in the back room than they had on the thing. They room and do a couple cars.
It's neat how all the different car clubs are building their museums there. It's great. So when you go, you can go places. The Classic Car Club has a museum there. The Lincoln, Franklin. I think Franklin was going to build a museum there, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Franklin has a museum there.
Model A.
Pierce Arrow.
I feel like, did they build a special thing for Model A's then, maybe?
Yeah.
A friend of ours had his Cobra on display there forever.
Lincoln has their own.
Lincoln, yeah.
You guys friends with John Haney? I think he runs the AACA bar, or the C. I keep getting confused.
The CC.
The Classic Car Club of America
Get
bar.
your initials straight. It's
I'm
kind of the same.
I'm dyslexic.
It's kind of the same initials, just in different order.
It is. It's so confusing. Like, when I write my scripts, I'm like, man, that's not the right one. No, it's bad. But yeah, thank you guys so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
We'll do it again for
Definitely.
sure.
Maybe we do it again or something. Maybe if people get online or something and see what cars we have in stock or whatever.
Yeah.
We can dig one car out and.
Did you guys want to? Did you guys want to show them? They're all covered.
www.motorcarportfolio.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram.
But if you go online, there's one in particular you want, or people ask, we can always dig one or two out and go around the car, talk about it, or tell you about it, or show you how it starts, or see if it runs that day. But but anyway, we can always do that. Dig one out or talk about it. But you're more than welcome to walk around the showroom, introduce them to Ray, who keeps all the cars clean.
Yeah, whatever.
And,
whatever you want to do. So.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
You want to walk around?
Yeah. We'll do
Yeah,
whatever.
we can walk around. We'll do a walkabout if the phone's gonna
Hopefully.
stay connected.
Hopefully it'll stay connected. Flip her around here.
We're in winter mode in Motorcar Portfolio.
Winter mode.
We have the cars covered up.
Cool. Thanks.
You want to start up here?
Yeah. So that's the Hudson that they were talking about, or the Buick they were talking about.
1912 Buick, which is amazing. It's an amazing car. We got it running. We've got the clutch unstuck. Now we just got to get everything jiving together. This is a Mullins boat that was built in the 1930s. It's an all-metal boat. It's pretty rare. It was built either in Salem, Ohio, or Elwood City, Pennsylvania, one or the other. I'm not sure. It's really hard to get good records all the way back then.
So that came from Elwood?
Yeah, I think so.
That's where
Or
I'm from.
Salem, one
Well,
or the other.
close. I'm close to Elwood.
This is a customer car, a 44 Coupe that we're going to be doing some work on. This is my uncle's GTO, the Matt just finished redoing the engine in, so it's about to be done. This is a 57 Chevy two-door wagon. It's a show car from the International Show Car Circuit. It's award-winning, many awards. It's called the Tri-Air. It's beautiful. So we keep it extra covered.
I wish I could convince that is.
Yeah,
It's so nice.
It's so thin. This is a truck we have for sale, a 1963 Chevy C10. Still celebrating Christmas around here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a 26 Dodge that Matt's currently working on. It's in our inventory. We're draining the old gas out of it. We're getting ready to put new tires on it. These rims are split rims. You have to have a special jack to get the tires off the rims. It's kind of crazy. It's like something that was popular, I guess, in the 20s.
This one's going to be featured on the channel. I did it last week, but I've gotten so far behind. I had to try to separate things, but this is a really rare truck.
It's a 1964 GMC Crew Cab, and yes, it's super rare. I can't even find any listings for any other ones that have ever been sold or anything. It was likely used by the railroad or the forestry division or something like that. So, yeah. It's coming soon.
And it's got it's a 305 V6 in it.
Yeah. Now the rest of the cars, like I said, we're kind of in winter mode, so they're covered up, but I'm happy to uncover. We have a 46 Ford convertible here.
I was gonna say, I think
it's a super deluxe. It's an awesome car. It's a Dearborn Award winner, which is a big deal if you know Fords. And the thing about this car,
man, look at all that pinstriping.
So, it's practically brand new. But it's a beautiful car.
That's an awesome color.
And
I just love the red, how it accents.
Yeah, and then it's got a dark red leather interior too. It's a nice accent as well. And then this car, I'll pull this picture up here, but it's hard to believe, but the underside of this car, you could literally eat off of it. It's just as shiny on the underside as it is on the top. We actually wax the underside. This is a picture. It has a Columbia 2-speed rear end, and that's a picture of the Columbia.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And that's what this overdrive is. So.
Aside from it being blue, this is like Biff's car from Back to the Future.
Yeah, it is like Biff's car. Well, let's hope what happened to Biff's car doesn't happen to this.
Yes.
So if you don't know what that is, you guys have to go and look it up. We don't want it full of manure. This is a 56 Chevy Custom. It's a pretty cool, very cool car. I love the metallic and the blue. And it's got light blue. This is I think a 90s Corvette color from the side, and then it has a custom, 50s kind of interior, black and white.
I love the paint.
And then it has these taillights in it that are Chrysler that are really a cool feature.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, they're really neat.
So it's got the Chevy front end with the Chrysler back end.
Yeah, kind
just
of.
the taillights.
Amazing. So much work went into the guy that built this car. This is a car I think you're going to be featuring on your channel soon, right?
Yeah, I just did a 59 Merc right before I came and did this one, so I wanted to kind of space it out a little bit. But this is a hardtop wagon. You never see these. It's a commuter. Oh, yes. The piece of resistance is right here because it has it's pillarless.
You have to get right on.
Say hi, Ray.
Say hi, Ray. This is Ray Olivier. He helps us out here a lot. He keeps all the cars clean, and one way we keep the cars clean is by keeping them covered up.
He washes them, cleans them, takes care of them. Gasses them up.
Pet 'em.
This is a 77 Jag. This car is an awesome car. It has been restored, over-restored. It has been treated had such a beautiful life. And you have to look at the inside of it. The leather inside of it is unbelievable. Get the smell through the bone.
Man. How cool. I love the dash.
It's such a pleasure to drive. You just like float down the road in it. This is a 32 Ford Coupe that was professionally built by Tucara's up in New York. And it was built for the SEMA show in 2019. And then it was given away for Syracuse Nationals, I think in 2019 as well. And it has a twin turbo EcoBoost engine in it. And this is probably the fastest car that Matt and I have ever owned. It is insane. And it's about to go on Bring a Trailer here in the next week, so watch for it. This is actually just a sticker. It's the HP Tuners logo because it has an HP Tuner box on it. It's crazy and it's fast.
You got an Alante.
Yeah, this is an Alante low miles. It's only got 16,000 miles on it. It's a beautiful, I think they call it dark green polo. And a tan leather interior, of course, black convertible soft top. So.
Is that the car they built in Italy and then they shipped them all over here on planes? And
I think so, yeah.
It has a crazy story.
It does. But this was a good one. A lot of them just kind of got trashed, but this was a nice one. I really like it. We're talking about interiors and buttons. This one has like, oh my gosh, look at all the buttons like above the shifter.
Wow. It's like a brand new car, though.
It is. It really is. Low mileage. This is a 3 owners from new. And the last owner owned it since 1977. And I don't say
Camaro
this lightly,
SS.
but numbers matching. 58 Camaro SS. So
Wow.
it has a 396 with a factory 4-speed. And it is the original engine that came in the car, which is awesome. It's got a basic black interior and then a white convertible top.
Oh, that's cool. 4-speed?
Yep.
Wow.
Your favorite old shoe, put it on and it just drives so nice. Yeah, we've got a little bit of everything. You can see everything on the website, motorcarportfolio.com. And then if you guys have any questions, maybe the next time you come back, we can get one out or do something with it. So,
For sure.
There's the Auburn we were talking about.
Yeah, I was just going to go here and just show some of the ones that are... Oh, I'm sorry. And show some of the ones that are uncovered, especially the Auburn over here. It's such a nice car, and it sounds and runs really nice. Yeah. Has a nice smell to it.
Some of our pre-work stuff we have right now. 29 Ford Model A, and a Chrysler, and of course a good old Model T. So.
Nice. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for watching.